Hello, I want to take the mission statement a bit further. We're talking about being 4 times blessed for giving, but of course we do give, okay, we give away free stuff, so we do give, but we also help. And there's a big difference between giving and helping. We try to end up in a situation where whoever comes to us gets a lot more than they expect. But that's not, you could say it's giving, I suppose, but I think it's more a case that we try and help people to attain their goals. And that is, in some ways, actually a worthier objective than giving, I think. In the sense that if you give, it's not something that another person can rely upon. It's something that is very useful and very nice for everybody concerned. But what's more important is that you help somebody develop their own lifestyle, their improved, their improved life. We all have ideal lives that we want to live. Frank Kern is an interesting individual. He's an internet marketing guru, I guess, a very successful chap. Clearly quite a deep thinker. He talks about the surface person, and then he talks about the core person. And the surface person is what we appear to be. So he talks about Bob the banker, who is a banker, goes and does banking stuff all day. But that's not the core individual. You know, Bob the banker might imagine himself, in Frank's word, as a rock star. Now, we all have most of us have this dichotomy whereby we do one thing, but we wish to do something else. Now, one way of bridging this gap, to trying to become the person who you essentially are in effect, is an exercise that Frank has developed for writing down your perfect day in great detail. You know, not just what you're doing, what you're thinking, who you're talking to, what you're talking about during the course of the entire day. So where you wake up, what you think when you wake up, who you wake up with, your view, all these things to fit together what you see as your perfect day. I mean, there are bound to be feedback loops here. I mean, you might start doing these things you consider to be your perfect day and find that you absolutely hate it for whatever reason. And it depends on your experience, probably on your age to an extent, as to how accurate you will be when you set out what you want to be. The point being that once you become the person you are, i.e. once you become your core persona, then you're very congruent. Many of us in this world are not totally congruent. We do one thing, but there tend to be so many conflicts. I mean, for example, let's say somebody has a business which is not the business they want to be in. They find they don't like their business, for whatever reason it might be. Maybe they don't like their customers. And so they hate what they're doing, but they've got a mortgage to pay. They have these things they've got to do. Now it's very difficult to be congruent in that situation. How are you going to go to a sales meeting, say, or give a presentation, say, in a congruent frame of mind, so that you speak to these people from your core, from the very essence of yourself, which is what is a very powerful thing to do. There's a DVD by Frank Kern called Core Influence, and I'm sort of paraphrasing some of this because it's part of what the mission statement for my business and Mark's business is. It's the same basic point. We're fairly congruent, we believe, in the sense that we have a lifestyle that we consider near perfect. I mean, I'm not saying it is perfect, but we travel a lot. We live in beautiful places. We can choose to live where we want to live, and we can suit ourselves to working in a way that suits us. For example, I'm in Thailand at the moment. We're 7 hours ahead of the UK. So the UK market opens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got the whole morning to do my market reports, my analysis, my research. It means I can do all this in a very relaxed fashion, and that's what I like. I like to have time to do some yoga, meditate, this sort of stuff. And out here I get all that. In the UK, market opens at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I had to get up at 6:30 or something, which is pretty early. It's pitch black, and I never get a chance to do these things. And I mean, there are pluses and minuses wherever you go. The people, my girlfriend, my daughter's in the UK, so that's where I want to be. But it's great to be able to come over to Thailand and work for a month or so, and get this stuff done. For example, just doing a video in Thailand is very, very simple, in the sense that there's good lighting, good backgrounds. It's all much easier. In the UK, you've got to have, the lighting isn't that great, so you've got to start thinking about lighting, then the backgrounds aren't so good, and it's a very different situation, much more difficult to actually do a video over there without hiring a studio or something, or getting professional people in to do all this kind of stuff, which is not how I work. I don't, a thought will come to me, I want to express it. I don't want to have to phone up somebody and say, look, can we book a date for the studio? Okay, 2 weeks. I mean, it's just not going to work. So I'd recommend this to anybody, in fact. I mean, in Frank Kern's case, he did the exercise and he didn't think that much about it. He just wanted to do it. And then a year later, he was living the perfect life. He'd moved home to a beachside place in La Jolla in California. And he changed his business so that before he hated it, total misery, according to Frank. But everything just slotted into place, and he didn't actually associate the two, the exercise he had done with the perfect day and this huge change in his life. For some years later, he suddenly realised he'd done this exercise, and the detail of what he actually ended up with was so, because he'd spent a lot of time, spent 4 or 5 hours writing down his perfect day, and then he found that, for example, the shower in his new house in La Jolla perfectly matched the description in his perfect day scenario. So quite fascinating, really. So that exercise alone could be an extremely useful thing to do, because we all have the ability to break out of our current structures. We don't. It's not an easy thing to do necessarily, but it can be done. I mean, some people, funnily enough, just as an aside, Mark was saying that on the Trade to Win bulletin boards, there were people questioning whether Mark really lived in Thailand. Now, I find that slightly bizarre. I mean, what the hell does it matter where Mark lives? Why should these people, I mean, God, they must have too much time to waste, mustn't they, really? That's the kind of thing they focus on. But my first thought was, well, I mean, it's costs more to live in Doncaster than it does in Thailand. I mean, the East is the up-and-coming countries, the up-and-coming part of the world. The West is a very expensive place to live. It's fully developed. It's got all these infrastructure problems, in the sense that pensions and welfare just draining the vitality. Too much government. The whole thing is a disaster area, in the sense of for business trying to expand. I mean, all these regulations. I mean, it's just endless, really, and the governments pay lip service to doing something about this, but they don't. Any kind of thing happens, anything goes wrong, immediately set up some new regulations, which is completely ineffective in my view, just a complete waste of money. I mean, good God, the investment regulations, for example, are now so complicated and so expensive. Okay, in a bull market, it may have been affordable. In a bear market, it's not, basically. It's just going to drag the whole economy down. And in the East, you haven't got that. Everything's much cheaper, so a business can start up much more effectively. You can come over here, you can do stuff for probably 20p in the pound. So it'll cost you 20p in the pound. So if a business in the UK might cost you £10,000 set up, maybe by building a website, some design work, I don't know, pay-per-click programs, SEO, whatever it might be you want to set up. Over here, you can find specialists who are very, very competent to do the same kind of stuff, and it's far, far cheaper. And of course, you've got a much better lifestyle. But you also need to be in the UK as well. I mean, it depends where your customers are, all this kind of stuff. But I see the East as being the powerhouse of the future, led by China. I mean, there are obviously problems to get through, but I think the East will sail through them far more quickly. I mean, I've got a huge advantage in just as labour cost. Everything over here is much cheaper. except for cars. For some reason, I mean, the Nissan 350Z, which is one of my favourite machines, is over £100,000 in Thailand, which is a bit bizarre. A 911, which is another of my favourite machines, is like 200 grand. Something like 300%, 400% tax on cars. But most things are much cheaper. And so anyway, getting back to this question of why people say, is Mark in Thailand? Well, where else would he be? Well, why would he be living very expensively in somewhere in England? When one has that freedom, you go where you want to go. Anyway, I think that's probably covered the ground I wanted to cover. I'm talking about the mission statement, trying to help people, and it's just very satisfying when people come and you obviously have given them a lift up far beyond whatever you may have charged them. That's I think it's that satisfaction which is makes it all worthwhile. And perhaps the thrice blessed bit, perhaps that's a foundation stone, but it perhaps isn't the best good way to express the actual reality of what I'm trying to talk about. Okay, I'm going to leave that there today. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.